We welcome everyone most cordially this evening. I'm Cantor David Silverstein, Bruchim Habaim. On behalf of our president, Mr. Mike Birnbaum, the leadership and the community of Congregation Agudas Achim, who's very proud to open our spiritual home to the greater San Antonio Jewish community. On behalf of Rabbis Allison Bergman, Barry Block, Chaim Block, Julie Hilton Danan, Ira Flax, Yossi Maris, Samuel Stahl, Aryeh Scheinberg, and our Rabbi-elect David Kay, our cantors Dr. David Van Abeman, Dr. Joel Ruttman, the San Antonio Community Adult and Youth Chorales, Mr. Manahara Viren Sinha, our accompanist. On behalf of our community leadership, Mr. Mark Friedman, the Executive Director, and Mrs. Elaine Cohen, President of the Jewish Federation of San Antonio. On behalf of the Director of the Holocaust Memorial and Educational Center, Mrs. Maxine Cohen, and our most special guest, I knew fondly in Los Angeles, Daisy Miller, welcome. Again, we welcome you to one of the most intense evenings of memory and reflection, inspiration and hope for the future for us as Jews and as citizens of the world. Hannah Senesh, our hero of the Partizonim, the Jewish resistance and freedom fighters, wrote, "There are stars whose light reaches the earth only after they themselves have disintegrated and are no more. And there are men and women and children whose scintillating memory lights the world after they have passed from it. These lights which shine in the darkest night are those which illumine for us the path. Friends, over 6 million such lights, Jewish and non-Jewish, shine brightly for us in the silence as we rekindle each one symbolically this evening. We echo tonight an affirmation not denied during the terror of those years. Ani Ma'amin. I believe. I believe that the light will shine tomorrow. I believe in a Jewish people united. I believe with perfect faith in the coming of Mashiach. I believe in God. For even when God is silent, I believe." Won't you kindly rise as we welcome heroes, as we welcome the survivors and their families who will kindle flames as we all remember.
Tonight, we call upon the survivors, their children and grandchildren, to light candles in memory of those who perished. Although our people were nearly consumed in fire and death, the remnant who emerged is living testament to our will to survive and build new generations. The survivors and their children are our bridge from the past to the future, a symbol of the victory of life over death. As they kindle the flames, let us pledge with them that each year, now and forever, there will be Jews who light candles in memory reverence, and respect. Not to curse the darkness, but to light the flame, and to light it as an act of faith, this day's. At this sacred hour, we pause to remember a time when night was obscured by darkness, when the faces of evil were arrayed against our brothers and sisters. Their memory must remain forever etched in the conscience of humanity.
If we were to mourn each man, woman, and child, if we said Kaddish for each one, it would not be done yet, for it was more than death, it was a people's heart. If ever my grief were measured or my sorrow put on a scale, it would outweigh the sands of the ocean. My worst fears have happened. My nightmares have come to life. Silence and peace have abandoned me, and anguish camps in my heart. O the night of the weeping children, O the night of the children branded for death. Sleep may not enter here. Terrible nursemaids have usurped the place of mothers. Instead of mother's milk, panic suckles these little ones. Yesterday mother still drew, sleep towards them like a white moon. There was the doll with cheeks deruged by kisses. In one arm, the stuffed pet already brought to life by love in the other. Now blows the wind of dying, blows the shift over the hair that no one will come again.
Let us remember our brothers and sisters, their cities and villages, the town's noisy streets, the lonely village inn, the distinguished old men, a young girl with her braids, an infant.
Jewish communities, with their thousands of families, a whole Jewish existence sentenced to death on the European continent by the Nazi executioner. The sudden outcry of a man who died, the woman who cradled her baby till her arm dropped, the infant seeking its mother's breast when it was cold and blue, the feet.
Those feet trying to escape but could not, fists full of steel, the steel becoming weapons of despair, vision, and rebellion. Those heroes of the heart, open-eyed, daring, gave their lives but could not gain victory. Let us remember the day at noontime when the sun gazed down on the slaughter from high in the silent sky. Let us remember the pile of ashes under the blossoming gardens and the dead who stare at us. They look from all sides, calling out for response. And let us, with our lives, bear witness and be their memorial.
To the question, where was God at Auschwitz? The answer is, God was there, starving, broken, humiliated, gassed, and burned alive, sharing the infinite pain as only an infinite capacity for pain can share it. What is the message in the divine presence? Not stopping the Holocaust despite the most desperate pleas? In effect, God was saying to humans, you stop the Holocaust.
The world did not respond adequately. Even the Jews of the world failed to meet their responsibility. But finally, the Jewish people heard the call and responded by taking responsibility to create Medinat Yisrael, the State of Israel, to stop another Holocaust as best we can. Jews, observant and secular alike, were still so in love with the dream of redemption that we have volunteered to carry on the mission. We have all been so committed to the triumph of life that we would brave the threat of limitless death again. In an age of extreme hiddenness, God must be discovered everywhere in all facets of life. In an age of divine hiddenness, the most credible statement about God is the creation of an image of God, which silently but powerfully points to the God whose image it is, to increase the number of Jews, to increase the presence of life in this world, to feed a starving child, to heal a sick person, to nurture human uniqueness. All these are sacred acts.
in the ghettos, on the trains, at the doors of the gas chambers, in hiding or fighting the enemy, Jewish voices were heard reciting prayers. Abandoned by the world and alone, they cried out against the darkness. They were blinded by tears and by grief. Yet gently there was a whisper of the night song, an affirmation that could not be denied. Together, Ani Ma'amin, I believe. I believe that the light will shine tomorrow, even if I do not live to see the end of the night. I believe in love, even though hatred surrounds me. Ani Ma'amin. I believe in the Jewish people united like the fingers of one hand, a hand that can clench in strength, yet reaches out for peace. I believe that I am my brother and sister's keeper, that all Jews are responsible for one another. Ani Ma'amin. I believe that despite the fury and wrath of those who rise up in every generation to destroy us, the people of Israel lives. Now we are a nation like other nations, masters of our destiny for the first time in 20 centuries. The dream came true, too late to save those who perished in the Holocaust, but not too late for the generations to come. I believe that the land, the book, and the people are one, not only today, but always, in memory of those who perished before, and in the pledge of those who live after us. I affirm the words of the prophet Isaiah, for Jerusalem's sake I will not be still. Ani Ma'amin.
Please rise as able and join us in singing.
Before introducing our speaker, I want to offer a word of commendation and thanks to Maxine Cohen, who's the Executive Director of our Holocaust Memorial here in San Antonio, for the outstanding job that she performed in coordinating all the details of this memorial observance this evening. Jewish children were the primary victims of Nazi brutality and terror. Over 1 million Jewish children were murdered, and countless others died of starvation and disease. Some escaped the fate that awaited them, robbed of their childhood, torn from their homes and their families, Terrified and sometimes alone, they wandered all over the face of Europe in search of a hiding place or even a friendly face. The most fortunate found refuge and were saved. Daisy Miller, our guest speaker this evening, was one of these hidden children. Born in Yugoslavia, she spent the war years in hiding in Italy. Memories of an interrupted childhood led her later in life to leadership roles in a worldwide network of child survivor and hidden children groups, and she is the co-founder of the World Federation of Jewish Children Survivors of the Holocaust. In 1994, Miss Miller began working at the Survivors of the Shoah Visual History Foundation, the organization founded by Steven Spielberg to preserve the memories and the eyewitnesses' accounts of Holocaust survivors. She began her association with the foundation as an interviewer, and since that time she has held several key positions in the organization. She now serves as executive director for annual development. Tonight she's going to share some memories of her experiences as a hidden child with us. Please join me in welcoming Daisy Miller.
Thank you. First, I'd like to say how moved I am, how comforted I feel to be here with you, with my fellow survivors, my family, and with all of you who have come here this evening in such numbers. I have to say that I'm truly affected by the turnout. I think it says something very important to us. It says that we are not forgotten. It says that you care. It says that we're together and that we need to continue to work very hard to remember. So I would like to say, before I say anything else, how grateful I am and how comforted I feel to see you here this evening with us, the survivors. I am only standing here this evening before you because I happen to be a Jewish child born at the wrong time in the wrong place. Born as a Jewish child in Europe in 1938 was not what I particularly would have chosen to do had it been up to me. But it was not up to me. I was born in Yugoslavia, in Zagreb to be exact, in 1938. And for the next 3 years of my life, my family attempted to escape Yugoslavia, having already escaped Austria. And finally, after 3 years of many, many unsuccessful attempts at crossing over the mountains, at attempting to get false papers, after seeking help from various sources that never came through, finally were able to get false documents and were able to make it into Italy, which at that time was still allowing those of us who were fleeing to come. As you know, if you know your history, Italy at this point was still allied with the Germans. But as that alliance broke apart, of course, the Germans came into Italy. And so although we were interned in Italy, not mistreated, but kept very close watch, we realized that unless we found shelter and some safe haven, that we would probably be deported, not probably, but likely be deported, taken to concentration camps, whatever that meant to us at the time, because very little was really known and made available to us in terms of information. And so we sought help from local people and found a well-to-do landowner in a small village outside of the city of Florence who owned land and had tenant farmers who worked his land. And he asked them if they would take us in and give us shelter. When the time came for us to, in fact, have to go, we did hide with the farm families that this wonderful man arranged for. I'd like to just briefly describe this period of my life. I, at this point, was 4 and 5 and then 6 years old. I spent 1 year of my life during this later period of hiding time, hid in a room, in a farmhouse, in a very primitive farmhouse, in the countryside outside of Florence in a hill town, hidden by a farm family who, had they been discovered to be hiding us, particularly Jews, had they been discovered to be hiding us, would have been stood against the wall of the front of their home and would have been shot on the spot. The entire family, from small children to grandmother, would have been killed had they been found to be hiding us. So the risk was an immense one. But these people took us in. No promise of money, no direct reward to them, but they took us in and saved us. I have to say that at some point we had to actually move to another house, as there was suspicion that somebody was hiding there, and so before we were discovered, we were actually able to move to another safe house. And again, another farm family took us in. I briefly want to describe to you what that was like for me as a 5-year-old child, hidden in a room where I was not allowed to leave. I was not allowed to go outdoors, for sure. I was not allowed to make any noise. I was not allowed to laugh or cry or run. And for those of you who have small children or have grandchildren, know what a 5-year-old energy is like. And to think of myself sitting quietly or playing quietly in this room with my family now seems almost impossible. As a grandmother, I certainly wonder how that was ever possible. And yet, that is how I spent a year of my hiding, deep hiding life. The room that we lived in was big enough for a bed, a chest of drawers, a small table, 2 chairs, and some blankets on a mattress on the floor where my sisters slept. My parents, of course, had the bed, and I shared it with them from time to time. But most often I slept on some pillows on top of this chest. It was actually not a chest of drawers. It was a chest like a hope chest. Some of you might know what that is. That is where I slept. I am fortunate in that I was in hiding with my family. I had a wonderful father who was a very bright and talented man, who was a wonderful storyteller. And one way he found of keeping me occupied and keeping me content under these circumstances was to tell me stories. And he would tell me stories in serial form, so that I would always have the next episode to look forward to, which I think was an incredibly inventive and clever thing on his part. I also recall sitting for hours in a room adjacent to the one where we were hidden, in a room that was a storage room which stored grain and wheat products, which was infested with ants. And for hours and hours, my father and I would sit in this room and watch the ant trails carry little grains of sand from one end to the other. And he would tell me these stories about these little ants and create universes around them. Those are the memories that I have, but I also have memories of German patrols coming through the area, the house shaking when armored vehicles drove by it, in front of it, and stopping in front of the house And one day, a German soldier came into the house looking for men for labor. And of course, because of a network, an underground that had been formed in the area, we knew that the Germans were coming because farmhouses would hang out white sheets on their windows when German patrols would come up the mountain. And so we knew they were coming. And so the farmer and my father had enough time to escape into the woods, into the mountains. And so the German soldier came in to the house. And of course, he pushed his way through into our room. And when he saw us, he asked the farm woman who came up with him, "Who are these people?" And she said, "They are relatives of mine who have come here because of the war." And he wanted to know where the men were. I was, by this point, I guess 5.5 years old, 6 perhaps. I have to tell you that my memory of that moment is etched in my brain. Here, as such a young child, I already knew that a false move, a false step on my part or anybody's part in that room would mean destruction, it would mean the end, it would mean separation from my parents, it would mean a terrible thing. Whatever a 5 or a 6-year-old understands at such a point. I also remember that gun pointed at me, which I looked into from my perspective as a child, and it felt like a cannon was pointed at me. Something that's etched in my brain. And the soldier, after determining there was no man in the house for labor, of course, luckily walked out and left us there. But that is the kind of memory that I have. I have a memory of my father who spent days on end in a hole in the ground outside in the field next to the house. Because Germans' patrols were coming through, there was no time to get to the mountains. And he would lie in a hole in the ground covered with straw during the day and only allowed out at night. And I remember sitting on his lap when he came out. And I remember the smell of his clothes after having been lying in this damp earth all day. And I remember I have this visceral recollection of what it was like to be sitting on his lap, glad to see him, and smelling this smell, which is still in my nostrils today. The kinds of memories that children have are different from adult memories, but they are valid, they are real, they are from the perspective of a child. They are the memories that I and my other fellow child survivors had. When liberation came, and I must tell you, I'm giving you my story very quickly. There were many incidents that I'm certainly not going to go into right now. But when liberation came, again a soldier came into the house. And this time, the soldier turned out to be a friendly soldier. He was looking for German soldiers who were hiding, and of course he went room to room, and he came on our room. And what a surprise it was for him to find us there. When he was told that we were Jews, he admitted to us and told us that he was a South African Jew. So we were liberated by a Jew, which I think in itself is very, very moving and touching experience. That first day after liberation, I was allowed to go outside for the first time in a year. Behind the house where we were hidden, which by the way was very primitive, I must tell you. There was no running water in this house, no amenities. The first thing I wanted to do, of course, was run, as any child would. Behind the house there was a hill, sloped downward. And so I ran down this hill, and I can still feel that exhilaration of being allowed to finally run, when I hadn't been allowed to move, really to talk loud, to make any noise. When I cried, pillows were put over my head so the noise would not carry. And I ran down that hill. Of course, what I didn't realize was that I would have to walk back up that hill. And you know when you haven't exercised in a while what that feels like? My muscles hadn't been used in a very long time, and I still feel the pain that I felt that day. When we were taken to the encampment of the Allied soldiers after we were liberated, I was asked, "What would you like to eat?" What a question. What do you ask for? Well, the first thing they gave me was some white Wonder Bread, like white bread, with oleomargarine on it. The best thing I'd ever eaten in my life. These are the kinds of memories that children have. But the memories of horror, of fear, of anxiety surrounding us all the time are there as well. One other incident I'd like to mention before I go on that stands out in my memory is one day when I was allowed to go out downstairs during the hiding time into the kitchen where the farm family was sitting around a large oven, one of those walk-in ovens, you know, where they bake bread and there's a black cauldron hanging from the chain. I mean, really, that's what it looked like. And they were sitting around talking, and it felt so good and wonderful to be with people away from that room. And all of a sudden, the front door opens up. They thought they'd locked it, and some people came in. This was late in the evening, and I froze in place. And nobody paid attention to me. Nobody noticed me. But suddenly the visitor said, "Who is she?" And everyone realized that I was there when I wasn't supposed to be. So they made up some story about being a relative that had come for the war from the South. At which point I turned and ran up these stone stairs to my room, to our room. And I came in, and I'm told that I was as white as a sheet, and that I was panicked. And of course everyone panicked. Because even at the age of 5.5, I knew that what I had done was something terrible. I might be the reason, the cause for my family's destruction, for terrible things to happen, for separation from my loved ones. Those are the memories that we children have. They are memories that are etched in our beings. So when, as I was growing up, I was told, "Forget it, Daisy, don't talk about it, don't think about it, it's behind you, think ahead, think to the future." And when I was told, "You don't remember anything anyway, and what you remember is not accurate, that's not exactly how it happened," I became silent once again and withdrew in terms of that past. And really no one else asked. Nobody wanted to know. And so I remained silent until in 1983 I met with a group of people who were doing interviews for a project that Yale was conducting. And they were looking for child survivors to be interviewed. And that is the first time that I heard the term child survivor used. It opened up an entire world for me. That somebody should actually know what that meant besides me. That there were others in that room who were also children who, like myself, had been silent for all these years. It's as though a light bulb went on for me. It was then that I got up and said, "Is there anyone here who would like to pursue this subject further?" And as several people raised their hands, we formed our first group in Los Angeles of child survivors. As mentioned in my introduction, we are now over 40-some groups worldwide, comprised of over 10,000 people who, like myself, were children during the war. Some in hiding, some from concentration camps, some who had spent the war years in convents. But most of them, by the way, came out of the war completely alone, with absolutely no support systems. No mothers, no fathers, no sisters or brothers, cousins, aunts, uncles, grandparents, no one. And so they came out of the war and were often sent off to distant relatives who didn't particularly want them but felt compelled to take them in, or to strangers. And child survivors report that for many of them, life after the war was almost worse than during the war. We've had a tough time of it, as all survivors have. The only thing that we've had in addition to some of the older generation is that we've basically been denied pretty much our experiences. It is for that reason that I have made it a major issue to remember and to encourage my fellow child survivors to remember and to speak about it. And so in 1994, when I was asked to join a newly founded organization, the Survivors of the Shoah Visual History Foundation, to help document and to help record testimonies of those who survived the Holocaust, of course, I agreed to do that. And when I first came to the Shoah Foundation, I thought I would be there for a short time. And I agreed to become an interviewer, which I did. I interviewed for the foundation. And then soon after was asked to come and work for the foundation. And again, I thought I would be there for a short time. And 7 years later, I am still there and going strong and hopefully continuing to go strong for a long time. And the reason is that the Shoah Foundation has provided us, the survivor community, with an opportunity to speak, to tell our stories. I know there are people in this audience this evening who have been interviewed by the foundation. I know that for many of us who have done so, it has been a cathartic experience. It has allowed us to tell our story, to be heard, to be recognized. It has allowed us to leave behind this legacy, not only for our families, but for generations to come. We have at the Shoah Foundation interviewed over 51,400 Holocaust survivors in the last 6 years. We have interviewed in 57 countries, in 32 languages. We are carefully cataloging this information, and ultimately it will be accessible at sites worldwide via computers, where you and scholars and educators will be able to access all of these testimonies from a variety of points of view and interests. I'm here also would like to invite you, for those of you who are coming to Los Angeles, to please be in touch. I will be here. I will leave you my card. I will have information outside. Be in touch and let us know so that we can arrange for a tour of the foundation for you. I have been fortunate in that I have been, because of the Shoah Foundation and because of the work I've been involved in, I've had the occasion to travel to many lands, to many communities. And one of the things that I marvel at all the time is whether I'm in London or in Rome or in Tacoma, Washington or San Antonio, Texas, I feel when I come to my people, I feel part of my family as I feel here tonight. What a wonderful thing that we have such strong ties, such strong bonds. The fact that you are here this evening, I think, also shows how committed you are to remembering. I thank you for that. We survivors need you. And after we're gone, which will not be so far off in the future, those younger people in this audience will take that message on for us. I want to thank you so very much for allowing me to share a little bit of my story with you. I hope that these commemoration ceremonies continue into the future, far into the future, and that our children and grandchildren will continue to be part of the family. Thank you very, very much.
In memory of those of our people and those of every religion and nation who gave their lives for the sake of God's name, and in living tribute to all the fathers and mothers, brothers and sisters destroyed by the Nazi onslaught, we rise for the memorial El Molei Rachmim. Please rise. God, full of compassion, whose presence is over us, may the souls of our 6 million dead and all those who perished fighting for freedom find the safety and rest denied them on earth. Beneath the shelter of your presence, they have gone to their everlasting home with the holy and pure on high, who shine as the brightness of the skies. Cover them in the shelter of your wings forever, and bind their souls into the gathering of life. It is you, God, who is their heritage. May they be at peace in their place of rest. Amen. Will the congregation please offer with me in unison the Mourner's Kaddish? Yiskadal ve'yiskadash shmei rabo v'yolmo divro chirusei v'yamlich malchusei v'chayeichon v'yomeichon v'chayei d'chol beis Yisrael v'agolo v'zman kori v'yimru amen Yehei shmei rabo mevorach le'olam l'olmei olmayo Yisborach v'yishtabach Visboa, Visromam, Visnatsei, Visado, Visale, Visalol, Shmeiti Kutsho, Brichu, Le'en lo min kol be'choso v'shiroso, tush be'choso v'nechemoso, Damiron v'yolmo v'yimru amen. Yehei Shlomo Rabo min Shemayo, v'chayim oleinu v'yal kol Yisrael, v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom bimromov, hu yaseh shalom oleinu, v'yal kol Yisrael, v'yimru amen.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Travel safely home.